Make your own crown molding, they said. It'll be fun, they said. Welcome back to the shop and the channel. So this time now for the crown molding and the skirt boards. And you saw the prototype we did for the crown molding. I haven't coved, of course, because it was just a prototype. But we do have the final detail of the skirt board, which looks like this. Can you see it in the camera? Got a cove here and a bead here. This is just going to sit around the bottom, and it's going to bring your eye out kind of as you look down. Let me show you how this is going to look. Basically, it's going to sit with just a little coverage of the base like that. And it'll be fastened with a cleat back here. And then behind that, and of course here will be the feet. Let me show you the feet. Now, I mentioned that we were going to turn the feet. Mara found some really nice bun feet online from Osborne, and this is the profile we got. This is cherry. Got some sapwood in there, so I'll have to play with the coloring it a little bit, but these are the bun feet we're going to use, and then we're going to fasten them with one of those double-ended fasteners that has a wood screw in one end and a machine screw in the other. I'll put a threaded insert in the base inside, and when you screw it in, it'll pull it all tight together. So that's that. So let's get started with this. This is the skirt boards. Let's get started with this. I got to drag all these parts to the router, and the router's already set up for this cove, and then after that I'll set up and we'll do the bead. So let's do some skirt boards. For the cove detail, I've installed what amounts to a raised panel coved raised panel bit. I'm only going to use the top dome portion of it. I like it because it's the one I have that has a 1/2 inch shaft for the router. And what I'm going to do is set up the two fingerboards that I have to hold the piece down and to the fence, and then I will drop this down and work my way up to the depth that I want and the reveal that I want in the skirt board. After that, we'll change bits and we'll do the 1/4 inch bead. And there you have it. So I've got the little shoulder that I want up here. I changed the camera settings so I could do the earlier close-up shot. But I've got the profile I want and the exposure at the top that I want on all three of the pieces for the skirt board. And now I got to do the bead detail. So again, I set the router up. You see me do this on the 1/4 inch pieces to do the beading around the doors and all that kind of good stuff. But I'll set it up again, and I'll just again do a quick run through of a couple of pieces, and then we'll be back on working on, well, that'll be done, and they can go on at some point. I'm not going to go on right away because there's a lot more to do. Then we'll get on doing the crown molding, which is the really finicky bit. It requires multiple steps and quite a few cuts, and believe it or not, I have to turn off the saw stop system when I do it, because I'm going to pin and glue the 1/4 inch round on the parts for the crown molding, and I don't want to set off the saw, even though it's a little tiny pin. I'm not going to take the risk, because why? And then I have to pay for a new blade and a new insert, a new cartridge, because that would be my fault. So let's do some beading now. Without going through the whole setup, the bead bit is in place, the feather boards are in place, everything's nice and tight and ready to go, so I can run these pieces through, and we'll have, at least the profiles will be done. Now it's time to cut the cove molding, which is all kinds of fun. So originally I mentioned I was going to do it on the router table. I think I mentioned. Anyway, I have this cove bit. It's nice. It does the job. But when I ran a test piece through, this is the cove I got. It's okay. I don't think it's pronounced enough. I want something with more eye appeal. So I did a table saw cut, which you've seen with using angled pieces of wood, and I got this. Much more pronounced Cove. I think it's got better eye appeal as well. Well, earlier in the week I dropped an unboxing video of the Rockler Cove cutting jig, which I've wanted for a while, because I want to add this repertoire to the shop, and this allows you to do your setup a lot quicker and not worry about it being so sketch. You know, parts maybe jigs or stuff or pieces of wood flying all over the place. Anyhow, so I'm going to use this Rockler Cove cutting jig for the coves on crown molding. In the unboxing video, I basically did taking it out of the box, assembling it, putting it on a table saw to show you basically how it works. This is the demonstration part of that video, because I will kill two birds with one stone. Make my crown molding and do a demo. And the way I set this up, there's a whole lot of instructions on how to set these things up and how to use them on the web. The instructions that came with it are sketch at best. So what I did first was I put my workpieces inside here, like so, put some workpieces in there, and then brought the wings together on the workpiece and then tightened up the spreader clamps so that now the workpiece will slide from end to end without shifting at all. The next step for me was, when I followed from the instructions, is I put a piece of tape at the exit and entry point of the blade through the insert. Now you set the height of the blade and then put tape across the insert where the blade exits and enters. The next thing is to set the jig at the angle to give you the cove that you wanted. Now I mentioned in the unboxing video that there are online cove cutting calculators. I found the fine woodworking one to be the best one, for me anyway. Now I did mention an app that I tried, and I thought it was going to work, and as I put in the parameters, in this case it's the blade diameter, the blade kerf, the height of the cove, and the width of the cove, I got 81 degrees to 86 degrees. What? No. The angle for this from the fine woodworking calculator is about 58 degrees. It can be 58, 60, somewhere in there. It's fine because you're not going to notice a difference if there's a couple of degrees off. Now, to set it up on the table. Now I've got these two locked in place. They're not going to move apart from each other. And to get the angle on the table saw, on the advice of an episode of This Old House, Tom Silva used this and advised getting it. Yeah, okay Tom, thanks. It's by Starett, so it's not cheap. But what it does is it gives you not only the angle of the wall you're working on when you're doing crown molding, down here on the red arrow, it gives you the miter cut angle. I don't need that right now. I just need to get the angle set up on the table saw. So I set this at 58 degrees, which is what the fine woodworking angle calculator came up to. I put a piece of wood in the miter slot, take the gauge, put it right up against the jig, and now I've got the jig set at the angle I want. So now I can, with the miter slot clamps loose, I can move this back and forth, up and down, to where I get it to the entry and exit point that you've taped on the insert. And then I lock down these bits, so now it's locked in this direction, so the workpiece can't wander, and it is locked in this direction, so rotate or move up and down in the table saw. And I ran a test cut. And I found when I ran the test cut, I had to move it just about a 1/16 of an inch or so, a little bit in that direction, to get the saw cut directly in the middle of the test piece. Did this test piece, and it came out exactly what I want. I hope I'm not oversimplifying this, but that's basically how it works. So let's do a comparison here. Here is the one from the router bit, and here's the one from the Cove jig. And this one, I think, has much more eye appeal. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that cut. Now, this is 1/2 inch stock, and I found out that the featherboard that came with this won't go deep enough for 1/2 inch stock, so I used one of my other featherboards and screwed it in place, and now it's going to hold it down nice and snug. It's multiple passes, as you can imagine. You're not going to do this all in one pass. It's about a little over 1/16, maybe an eighth of an inch at the most per pass. And then when I'm eyeball satisfied with the cut on the end, I stop. Then it's a matter of just taking the semi-round French curve scraper and sanding a piece of sandpaper on a piece of pool noodle to sand this down nice and smooth. At that point, I can do the back cuts, which are the 38 degree angle cuts back here that you have in any crown molding, and then the extra cut I need to put on the 1/4 inch bead. So that's where we're at right now. So let's go ahead and push some wood through this and make me some basic crown molding stuff. And that's basically it. I hope that you're able to get a good picture out of that little montage of how this thing works and how nicely it works. It really works really nicely. Now the last pass that I made was a skim cut. I basically came up just a tiny bit in the blade and slowed the workpiece through, so I have much less roughness to remove from the actual Cove itself. So let's take a look over here. I hope this kind of shows you what's going on here, but this is essentially what it's going to be. I know I should bring the camera in, but that's it without the bead on it. I'm going to have to do some trimming. Like I said, because this is going to be 38 degrees, there'll be a 38 degree cut here on this corner and on this corner, like you would on any crown molding. This is symmetric crown molding, so it'll be 38 degree. Then one more cut along here that'll accept the 1/4 inch bead, and once the bead is fastened and glued to this edge, at that point I basically come back and clean off the leftovers of the bead, which should be hanging out too far, and then I can put the backing on it, and then it'll sit right there, kind of like that. And then I can demonstrate the cut and crown little thingies I've got. I've had this one for years. I later bought the 45 and the 54, 52 I think it is. This is the cut and crown. They're out of business now. I tried to find a place where you could buy these. You can get them off of eBay occasionally. But this is cut and crown, and it goes into your chop saw, and it always cuts with the blade on the chop saw at 45 degrees to the left. And whether you orient it this way, put the crown molding up or crown molding down, like that, upside down, will determine if it's an inside cut, a left inside, or left outside cut. I'm going to be doing all outside cuts because it's all outside. No inside cuts. As far as the skirt board is concerned, that's straight 45s. That's all that is. So let's do some more table saw cutting. I got to disassemble all this, clean up the mess, because even though I run dust collection, man, this leaves some stuff around. Doesn't make it into the dust collector. So I'll clean all this up, and we'll set the table saw up now for the 38 degree corner cuts. But before we do that, a quick treatise on how I'm going to sand the Cove smooth. I did that slow, shallow cut for the last pass, which basically left very few milling marks behind, but we still have those diagonal milling marks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck this up in my on my bench, proud of the surface with my bench dogs, little plastic Rockler bench dogs. Now, the first step is the scraper. This is the scraper I was talking about, the little French curve style scraper thing. And what you're going to do with this is you're going to knock down the remaining milling marks that you find that look like sandpaper won't get them. And that's what I'm doing here. Getting nice peels with the scraper. So you do that, and then you thought I was joking about a pool noodle. This is a piece of a pool noodle, and I've got 220 wrapped around it, and it fits the radius here just about perfectly. And that cleans up the surface even better. So now it's down to 220 there, and then because there's a little shoulder here and here, little shoulder, I want to retain a little bit of sharpness on that shoulder. So I take a sanding block, give it a couple of licks with the sanding block, and that sharpens that edge up on the shoulder again. So now I've got, this one's ready to go. I got one more small one and the long one to do, and then we can do the 36 degree cuts, and we'll explain why 36 degrees and how to do it. Hopefully I just want to do a whole treatise on doing crown molding. This video is bumping up against 15 minutes or so, so I may split this into another video on actually mounting all the crown molding on the armoire itself. So let's do some table saw stuff. What I just did there is set my blade angle 38 degrees from the table, from the vertical to the left, using the wonderful Wixie block. There's quite a few of those on the market. Now I don't need a blade that high, so I'll lower it down. Yeah, I got to lubricate that. There, and I've got test pieces that are made exactly like the molding itself. Well, so let's talk about angle. Why 38 degrees? So take a look at this picture. These are the common angles for modern houses: 38 degrees, 45, and 52. And the angle is determined by the height of the ceiling. So the closer the ceiling is to you, the shallower you want the angle for your eye. The higher you go, the more angle you want angled down towards the viewer, so you get a good picture of the crown molding. So how are we going to make these cuts? Here's a little drawing I did. The first cut is going to be done on the vertical. And that's to give you your spring angle off the wall if you're doing this against a wall. So what I'm going to do is bring the fence up like so and sneak up on the cut till I get the takeaway that I want. The other two cuts are done on the flat. There's a cut that's going to be on the top of the molding. It will be against your ceiling. And then there's another cut that's not part of crown molding, but it's where the bead is going to go on one of the wings. So let's make the first cut and do a test. So that's the first cut, and that's, like I said, it's on the vertical, and that's where it would go against the wall. That's 38 degrees, and on the armoire, it goes up against it like this, kind of. So this is 38 degrees now facing the viewer, so you've got a better picture instead of 45 or 52, 54, whatever it was, 52. Now what I want to do is knock off this corner here, and that takes off this flat that you're going to see as you look at it, and bring it down to a nice tight little shoulder right there. And since that's going to be 38 degrees to the viewer, it's going to be straight across. Now this is going to be on the flat this way, because I'm going to knock this corner off here. And again, we sneak up on it so that we get it right where we want. Now when I do the final pieces, I will sneak up on each cut and then cut them all, one right after the other. Okay, so that's what I was looking for. you can see hopefully on camera, this is 38 degrees from the vertical. This is sort of 38 degrees from the horizontal. So on the unit itself, when you mount this, you don't have that corner sticking up in the back. It's flat across the top. And then I want to knock off a bit here, down here on the vertical, so that on the horizontal, so that the bead can be glued and fastened to the bottom of this, which will run across here and hide the edge of the plywood that I featured in the previous video. So this one gets cut on the flat this way. So it's 90 degrees to this angle right here. Again, we're going to sneak up onto it. I know about by eye how much I want exposed for the bead to be glued to it. So there's that cut here where the bead's going to sit. So I mount it up like so, and this is covering, this will be sitting so it fits flush with this line, the top, and then the bead is just going to cover up that bit of the plywood. But that's essentially what it's going to look like when it's in place. So on the vertical, on the flat, all 38 degrees. Wall, ceiling, any detail I'm going to put on there. So that's where we're at. Now the next thing to do is to cut the cherry. Hope you enjoyed that. Sitting on tape, my papers, my cheater notes. I hope I got across the fundamentals of crown molding. I'm not a crown molding expert, and I don't pretend to be one. I've done this entire house in crown molding, but nah, we're not one of those, not one of my fortes. But anyhow, now you know where we're going with the crown molding here. So this video is over 20 minutes. I can't keep these things short, can I? So we're going to end it here. The next video, I will have the crown molding prepared for mounting. Then we can start cutting the angles on the chop saw with the cut and crown jig, show you how that works, and mount it all in place all around the top. So until then, make great things out of wood and maybe practice some crown molding.